Neon Divide attention! Welcome, welcome. I'm glad you could come. Thank you all for showing up. I would like anyone who has not attended one of these workshops in the past season to go on my left side. Anyone who has to be on my right side, whether that's here or any other workshop for any other roleplay, please.
I don't think so.
Escape that apparently.
One more time, I'm dumb as shit.
Oh, it's cool. Hey, how you doing?
If you've been to a workshop, go over here. If you haven't, go over there.
Okay, I haven't done it.
I'm stuck.
Play spaces right.
Have you done
Oh,
workshop?
sure, what happened?
Oh.
Okay, this way.
Wait,
I think.
yes,
Yeah.
hi.
No, I haven't done
Was this the
workshop.
have
Where
not
do I
done
go? Okay, you're with us. You're with us. You're over here. Okay.
Over here. This is if you've done.
This is if you've
Well,
already had
oh,
a
okay.
workshop.
No, sorry.
For any other one.
Crashing.
I don't know what happened.
Give you guys 15 seconds.
We're very serious over here. We're very serious.
Yes, we're very serious.
Very professional. Very
So,
professional.
Very, yes.
Stop done over here. Head down
I'm
over
gonna
there.
hide
Okay.
behind the wall.
All right. Once again, thank you all for coming. We're going to go ahead and get started now. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Timeless. You may all know me as the shitbag Titus who chills in the row and is a little tiny e-boy with an arm sword. If you don't, you will. Smile. So, in talking with staff about these workshops, we kind of came to the conclusion that these should be standardized, mandated. So I'm going to get every single person in the cast, both characters and extras and staff and DMs and anybody in between, to attend these workshops before Season 4 starts. So, tell your friends if they don't already know. Make sure you get people in here. If you are going to be rolling out a combat-focused character next season, or if you already are a combat-focused character, I am going to require that you show up to the advanced workshops, which I'll be running alternating from these. It'll go basic, advanced, basic, advanced, basic, advanced, so on and so forth. The reason I need combat people to show up to those is because those are where you're actually going to learn how we're going to do combat. These basic workshops are a lot more for portrayal. These basic workshops were designed in such a way that non-combat characters would know how to react in a combat situation if they're ever in one, because it's pretty fucking likely you're going to end up in one in ND. Obviously, you can tell by my language that we are super not professional here. I don't care if you guys fuck around and have fun as long as I have your attention at all times. This is because I don't want us to be here for 4.5 hours. I'm going to try to keep you for no later than 2.5. If I find at the 2-hour mark that we're not quite where I want us to be as close to finishing, then we're going to delay it out and go again next week before I do an advanced workshop. That way I'm not wasting your guys' time. Sound kosher?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. So again, we're going to cover fundamentals here today. We're not going to cover anything hard combat. Unfortunately, a lot of the fundamentals involve portrayal. And to really go over portrayal properly, I need to basically run a melee workshop. So that's kind of what we're doing. It'll be like 95% of everything you need to know in melee. And simultaneously, it'll teach you good portrayal, good reactions, things like that. So, what I would like you all to do very quickly is I want one person from each from one person from this side here to pick one person from that side.
Pick a battle buddy.
Any stragglers we have fall-offs on this side, you guys can pair up.
You've been summoned.
Are we doing Alright, cool, kick ass.
So I probably shouldn't.
No, go. You
This
guys
isn't
pick.
prom, ladies and gentlemen. You can
Everybody
kiss
back
I got
up.
mine.
All right, fine.
Come on,
RK,
don't be
your ass is
shy.
mine.
Oh my god.
Brennan, I choose you. Of course I do.
Oh, we're all picking
Kick
one?
ass.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's
that's
a good
good.
pick. I've actually been to workshops before.
He's picking me.
Alright, there you
I
go.
watched the last workshop, but I
Alright,
wasn't
sweet.
there.
Got 2 half bodies. Let's go.
Zach?
Well, to be fair, I went to one, but it
In the end of the day, make sure that even half bodies can portray, so might as well.
Actually, no. You know,
Once you've got your people picked out, please go back to my right. That way I can see who still needs a partner.
Right, who's taking first?
you're right, which is this one. Got it.
Yeah, I gotta go to
Thank you.
I'm still looking for one.
Hey, timeless.
All right. Yeah, what's up?
Currently on desktop, in like 10-20 minutes I'll get on VR for this, okay? I'll just watch for now.
All right, everybody else on my left here, I would like you all to partner up. Pick one person, please.
Vito. Nico. Hey, Miz.
Don't be shy. Get to know each other. You're gonna probably do it in RP anyway.
Touch tips.
Please, what is wrong? Mezzo's already handling another man. You gonna put him back in shape for it?
Because I haven't done this before.
If you don't pick, I will pick for you, and you don't want me to do that.
Indeed.
He will make it awkward.
There you go. That's what these are for.
All right, we look pretty paired up. Now, I have a question for some of you to consider before we really get started here. What is the purpose of combat in a VR roleplay? Anybody who wants to answer that, come forward, answer it out. You're not fucking allowed to answer, Luca, because you're the one who put this question in this fucking doc in the first place.
Damn.
All right, go ahead, tell me.
Progress the story.
Damn fucking straight. If you think or say anything other than progress or further storytelling purposes, you are wrong. If you think it is to survive, it is to win, it is to beat out other people, it is to look cool, look badass, whatever the fuck, no. It is to further storytelling. It is simply a medium of telling a story. And that is exactly what we're here to talk about and teach, is that combat isn't about winning. It's never about winning, it's never going to be about winning. This is a fucking make-believe thing we all do for fun, and it's a kind of expensive one, as I'm sure many of you know. So every time a character dies, that should be treated with weight and respect. In other words, we're not here to better each other. We're here to have fun together, yeah?
Yes.
Make each other better.
Yes.
Damn.
All right.
Absolutely.
Don't mind me while I scroll a little bit here. So, VRRP combat exists as a storytelling medium. It serves to help portray adversity and tell stories, not to force cast members to win or to lose. There's nothing gained by winning, and attempting to win is just going to result in things feeling unfair to others involved, so you can feel good about coming out on top of the make-believe. It's not that deep. It's that simple. Hero moments are not winning. So, you know, if you've got a hero moment, if you got a moment where you get to do some badass shit, that's not winning out over other people. That'll happen. That's fine. I want to specify that there's a difference there. If you want to do something cool, that's cool. That's fine. Don't do it at other people's expense. That is one of the most fundamental aspects of good faith roleplay. I'm sure many of you have heard that term before. If you haven't, let me see a hand. Very nice. See, that's what we like to see. Good faith requires trust that the other players will not act towards you out of malice, and that everyone involved is there to have fun. If you feel like you cannot trust a role player to that end, I want you to make sure moderation knows the conduct that makes you feel like you can't trust that player, and what events led to you feeling that way. If you feel like someone is operating on bad faith, if they are metagaming, god modding, etc., 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 make sure your mod team knows, because that's kind of what they're there for. That's one of many things that they're there for. Moderation busts their asses for us at a constant to make sure that we have as much of a fair and fun experience as possible, and a big part of that is making sure that we weed out those bad actors. Thankfully, these workshops are going to make sure we can do that in a better and more concise way, so that those bad actors can't hide and be sneaky about what they do as easily. It should also be known, nothing is lost by losing. If you die and you lose your character, the only thing you're losing is an expensive model that you could honestly retool and repurpose for something else anyway. So, character death, as much as it sucks, is not a loss. It is the end of a story. A lot of people want to treat character death as if it's a loss. They get upset over it. And yeah, you're going to get emotional if a character that you care about dies. But, again, it's make-believe. It's not the end of the world. Stepping away from the mindset of winning and losing is step one to good faith roleplay. It's never about winning or losing. It's about telling a story and making sure that that story is fun and fair for everyone participating in it. Now, I want you all to keep in mind that you need to respect your fellow role players and the effort they put in at all levels. That means players should recognize that extras, NPCs, whatever you want to call them, have huge in-depth stories that could end in combat. They have characters that, even though they haven't dumped hundreds of models into, they still care about. Don't disrespect that, players, just because you've got an expensive model and you get a little cool tag and you get a little cool sheet. Doesn't Doesn't mean that extras are lesser than you. That is an elitist mindset that we will not tolerate. Clear?
Crystal.
All right, here's a big one. If your ears have been half open, I want your ears fully open for this next one. DMs are to be notified before any and all combat happens at any level to ensure that things go fairly. Whether that means the DM needs to intervene or just watch for any unsportsmanlike behavior and call it out. They need to pause RP to make sure something can be respected, anything to that sort. DMs should be aware. If you do not think a DM is aware or you do not see one present, call one. If you think a combat scenario is about to happen, call one. If you are just paranoid and you think someone's going to fuck you up, call one. Make sure they are aware at all times. This is so we avoid metagaming, cheating, abusing systems, god modding, or allowing out-of-character opinions to drive our in-character actions. The DMs can handle that, they can track that, they can pay attention to that sort of thing, and if it needs be, they can contact moderation team about it when it comes up. Extras especially, I want you guys to ensure that you can clearly hear and heed your DMs at all times. They are your direction, and they will task you as needed to ensure good combat flow unless stated otherwise. There may also be times in which they override some information you learn here. That is completely contextual if they do it. It's going to be smaller stuff. It happens, and it's completely context in the situation. If it happens, they'll explain to you what they need from you. All of those points center around good faith roleplay, which is imperative to ensuring combat flows properly. Bad actors can ruin scenes with ease, and they should be kept an eye out for so that bad acting can be stopped when necessary by those in a position to address it, such as the moderation team. Any questions on that? Yeah, I think that's all pretty fundamental stuff. I think that just kind of, we want that said so it's on record for the streams. We can have that on recording. I see a hand.
If we are directly in the center of combat, do we pause RP to call a DM?
Hopefully a DM should already be there, but if combat happens to be initiated without a DM present, ping a DM and I guess it depends. You might need to pause RP, you might be able to just kind of sit down and cover and chill for a minute. It really depends on how threatened you are, but a DM should be present before combat starts. Okay, now, this one kind of deserves to be elsewhere, but we are just going to cover it very quickly, and I'm going to need you guys for this. Please show me what joysticking looks like in a fight, and why we don't do it. A common mistake people make is rubber banding or joystick disengages. I want to see you do it in a fight like these two. Yep, you see them? They're kind of swinging at each other and joysticking around. We don't do that shit. Even if you are in half body, you can move around in a lot smaller margins, make smaller corrections with your movement. So show me that. Show me smaller corrections with your joysticks as you're fighting. Something that looks good and isn't rubber banding. See that? Ariana did that for positioning. It's all about positioning. And even if you don't have full body, you can use that for your positioning. A lot of people are worried about the half body shuffle. It's not that bad. In fact, it makes fistfights look really good because you're doing like a boxer shuffle. We do not do rubber banding or joystick disengaging. Your joystick should be used for small corrections. Even if you are in half body, when you move in your actual room, it will still move your model and it will still give you repositioning without you needing to use your joystick. Your joystick should be for small corrections only. Now, there's a few reasons we don't do that. I'm sure you can all guess a few of them. Is just it's kind of fucking hard to fight against. But specifically extras, you guys might be put into characters that are like really tough combatants that are able to kind of take advantage of fuck ups in movement. And if that sort of thing happens, you actually need to be able to capitalize on that. You can't really do that if the character you're fighting is just joysticking around, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Any questions on joysticking and why we don't do that?
How would you go about if, say, for my example, you have tons of controller drift and your sticks are very sensitive?
So controller drift is weird. The best thing I could tell you is try to offset it. If you notice that you're drifting, try to kind of move in the direction you were in and stay where you were. Controller drift and things like that we chalk up to scuff. People will know that it's a pretty evident difference if you're doing it intentionally or if it's scuff. And it's easy to correct on the fly.
Usually drift is one direction.
Yeah. If people notice that you keep if people notice that you keep joysticking in a certain direction, they'll probably think it's drift anyway, especially if you're actively trying to correct it. Anybody else? Any other questions? I see two.
What if you don't actually have joysticks per se? Because the Vive has the joy pads for moving around, that sort of thing. It's kind of difficult to make small-ish movements when I'm trying to, move around. It's very jerky.
I don't have a Vive to know how to deal with that. If anybody here does, that'd be awesome to kind of give some insight on that. But I would say just try to leave the joystick alone, or the pad alone in that case, as much as you can.
I mean, I used to have that a long time ago. I've gotten used to it, but back when I had the Vive, it's just a matter of you have to kind of be able to practice putting your finger closer to the center of the pad, because it's instead of scaling based off how hard you're pushing, it's how far away from the center you're going. And it takes a bit of practice, but worst case, the better way to look at it is more just doing a quick tap than trying to measure out an exact distance. So the equivalent for me is if I would just full stick for a second and just be and do that. Just small movements and just push down, lift up the thumb. That'd probably be the best recommendation if you have the Vive ones.
Okay, very nice. So, on the topic of joysticking, we're actually gonna, this is a bit further down in the workshop for me, but I think it's better off right here. We're gonna talk about some bad practices. These are your hard don'ts. These are, please, dear God, don't do it. I'm gonna have my demonstration crew demonstrate all these things, and you'll notice, I guarantee you all four of these people here, the moment I say the thing without even explaining it, they're gonna know exactly what it is, because this shit is notoriously bad don't do behavior. So we're gonna start off with blind firing or run and gunning. You shoot fuck damn inaccurate while you're moving, and please do not try to actually gun people down while you're moving around. It's not gonna work. If you are moving and shooting, it should be for suppression, and you should treat that like it is... Yeah, it's not Titanfall, exactly. If you're gonna move and shoot, that is suppression. You should have Stormtrooper aim as shit if you are moving and shooting. Blind firing is something you do behind cover, and same thing there. So you'd get behind cover and shoot over your shoulder or whatever. Don't do that, just because it's kind of hard to counter. There's no counterplay to blind firing.
Also, sometimes it's really hard to do because it'll try to reload your gun if it's like this.
Yeah, it will. Yep.
It will.
Okay, Coyote, I would like you to use the other three to demonstrate hit and run melee and why we don't do that. Because it is completely uncounterable. Nobody can catch you while you're running around, swinging once and then running away. Yeah, where's the counterplay to that, right? None. No counterplay at all.
Where's the sword in there?
Ari, I'm so sorry. Please show them from behind blind spot attacks without calling them out. So just doing them without calling them out. No reaction, no way of knowing what even happened. It can be very difficult to deal with. I mean, obviously she's making the sounds, so everybody kind of knows what's happening to them. But if you are going to make any kind of blind spot action, there is a much cleaner, much better way. So straight up from behind or from the side or anything like that is what you want to say if you're going to attack from the blind spot, and it should only be done when you are in a stealth situation. Only when you are stealthing should you be from behinding or from the siding or whatever, people. Now, if you want to attack somebody from behind or from the side, yes.
Could I make one minor request?
So
Could I get from behind it so you can see what it looks like from the viewer's perspective and that you don't see it?
yes. Can I get you to do that, Ari?
Get him, Ari!
To stab someone.
Hang him, John.
If I could have everybody on stage just set themselves to yell so that everyone can hear you just in case.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I've got,
You've
other
been
than
attacked.
the sound you made,
Yep, there's no
other
reaction.
than the sound you made,
How would we know?
I've got nothing to see.
And that could mean
Human
anything in that
reaction.
circumstance. So who knows what that could have been? That could have been
Or you could have
so
literally
walking
stabbed
by
them
being
and
like,
we would have not known that.
Stab
ripping your
it.
cloak
Not
off.
sure what that was.
Injected them with a
Thank you.
syringe and
So,
then assumed they got stabbed.
If you are going to attack from a blind spot, whether that's from the sides, keeping in mind, like, we all have a 180-degree field of view in real life, and the index has less than that, and most headsets have less than the index. So, like, my hands here, I can't see my hands, right? So I can't see any of the people on either side of me right now. I can only see what is directly in front of me. If I turn, I can see them. But if, say, OSL is attacking me while I am talking to you all, I need to hear something like from the side so that I know that it is happening, specifically from whichever side it is. So like on the right, so on the left, something like that. From behind. That should only be done in stealth. If you are going to accost somebody from a blind spot in an active fight scenario, here's what we want you to do. Coyote, you're going to be my example for this. So, Coyote's facing that side. He's doing his own thing. Hey, Ace! Gave him time to turn. Now, he can do a couple of things there. If I give him time to turn before I attack, and you notice I verbally called out to him, I gave him some way of knowing that I was behind him. You give them just a moment to turn, another moment to react, and then you do whatever it is you want to do. He's got two choices there. He could have blocked this hit, or what he did is took it with a bit of back. So he blocked it, he kind of recoiled a little bit, right? And that is a sequencer. We'll talk about more about what sequence breaking is later, but what that does is that tells him that I'm engaging him, and now he knows that I'm engaged with him without him taking an unfair, unreactable hit. If you are going to make any blind spot attack like that, you should expect it to not be received as an actual hit. You should expect them to dodge it, to block it, or to take no damage from it one way or another, because that is an unfair engagement if they take that hit, unless it is in stealth, and they will let you know with that from behind, from the side, whatever, when it's in stealth. This one's a bit for the extras more than anything. Targeting specific people. Dear God. Now, that's not to say players won't do this. Players, if you do this, you should have a very fucking good in-character reason for targeting another character in particular. But extras, if you're playing guards on a run or anything like that, do not sit there and say, oh, this person is, Ace is really strong and he needs to go down. I'm going to target him for the whole run and only shoot at him. No, don't do that. You should shoot at the first fucking person you see every time. Either that, or the DMs might have you target someone. Again, like I said earlier, some stuff in here the DMs might contradict on rare occasion. That is one of those rare occasions. They might say, hey, Charles, the orc, is being a threat. Focus him out for a second. And then you know to focus him out for a second, right? Plenty of bullets, plenty of targets. Please do not target specific people. Another big don't is anime fighting. Excessively fast, unreactable movements. Please demonstrate. Where is the counterplay to this? They're just flailing. What do you do? Especially look at Coyote and Star here. What do you do to this? How do you counter this? Half of that shit doesn't even show up on your end until like 6 or 7 hits have come out. There is no counterplay to that, so we'll talk more on telegraphing and how to slow your movement down later. That shit is why we telegraph and slow our movement down. God modding and metagaming. Yeah, it is really tiring.
Yeah.
God modding and metagaming, I think you all know what that is. I don't have to explain that. For anyone who may not, God modding is usually like when you were kids and you're playing with your little stick swords and you tell your friends like, no, I hit you for it. Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Just fucking play out. Metagaming, especially metagaming someone's weaknesses. You know, if you're talking to someone in character and they tell you that what their character's detriment is, don't use that against them in character. You don't know that in character. You have no way of knowing that in character. You keep that shit in out of character brain, and you keep that shit far, far away from your in character actions. I'm going to open for questions on any of these don'ts. But I also want you all to think of anything that might also be a hard don't. Mainly one, so I can add it to the doc, and two, because I just kind of want to pick your brains and see what you, so you've got the mindset down for it. So keep that in the back of your heads. If you come up with anything, let me know, because there are plenty of things we don't do. Yes.
Well, I don't know if this applies or if you're gonna cover it later, but I know that some effects might not like be easily seen, so just people should be aware of like I don't know how to best say this. There are be aware of effects that might not interplay with the systems that we have, and just to know like,
on avatar stuff is what you mean, right, Fritz?
Yeah, look out for on avatar stuff, things that
are going to be
magic, yeah.
Stars are an example.
Yeah, and this might not have been the right place for that, but just wanted to bring it up.
No, that's fine. We will talk about that again briefly. So, see, what Star has there is pretty easy to at least infer or assume. It's shocky, it's electric. You would assume that you're going to be shocked when you are attacked by this, right? I have no fucking clue what that is. I have very little clue what that is.
No idea.
I have very little clue what that is. So, when you see stuff like this, where it's a bit harder to tell what it is, this is mostly DM facing, so I'm not going to talk too much on it, but when you get into these engagements, DMs are going to ask you if there's anything you plan to use on that. This is something we did last season on runs. When we started a run, all of the runners would line up, and all the extras would line up on the other side, and the runners would just very briefly go over what they have that the extras should know about. So, in the case of Ari, anytime we were on a run, she would show off that sword and the blood magic and the cloaking and tell them like what it does and how they should react to it very briefly. That's how we're going to be treating any engagement moving forward, because that's the easiest way to do it, is just inform each other of what you've got going on so that someone knows how to react to it in the moment.
It's a great system.
I believe
Question on your left.
Question.
All right. So, sniping from afar, does that count as like trying to take someone out through stealth, or is that do nots?
So here's the cool thing about our guns is we have a whole hit detection system. So, you know, rather than have to yell out to Ace if I want to shoot him, I can just shoot over his head, and he'll see that tracer, he'll see that shot. Now what you want to do is you want to intentionally miss, and you want to make sure it goes past them, so that they can react, and it's actually fair. But that's better than me mag dumping him in the spine, which is what we don't want to do.
Okay, so that's a do not. Just don't mag dump someone.
Intentionally miss if someone can't see you. Sniping is a bit more... Sniping is a bit more kind of up in the air, and personally the way that I would handle sniping is, as long as you're sniping from an open enough position, then it's pretty reactable. Like, he can see me up here, he knows I'm up here, he can fire back, right? Especially once you see those shots go out, you see that big blue tracer, you got some idea of where those shots are coming from, and they can start to fire back.
Alright.
There is one thing I'll add on this for the gun system. Because I saw this, and you might see this in this situation. The shot Timeless missed, on my screen, it hit Coyote. No matter what you see, does not matter. What we see as DMs, we actually see if it hits, we actually see it. We see the health that everyone has. And that's what DMs go off of. DMs have the final say in what happens in a damaging situation. So if you see a bullet hit, it might not have hit.
So let's say in an instance where if I'm using, for example, a sniper rifle, and let's say I am probably perched up there, there's a lot of movement going on. If I fire with the intention to miss on the first shot and it ends up hitting somebody, what then happens? Do we just would it just be played off as like that was a miss since it was an intended is it was intended to miss, or how would that work out then if the first one is intended to be a miss shot in order to give them time to react?
If you miss and accidentally hit, it's kind of just scuff, and it is what it is. I would say in most situations, you can play that off as a miss and have a DM rectify it if you want it to be a miss. That's kind of a player intent.
We all face.
Yeah, scuff happens, and like what we want to convey is player intent.
And also,
firing
the
into,
best way
into combat, that is another problem.
I'm sure it's kind of can be assumed, but double tapping.
Oh Christ. So double tapping or coup de grace is very much something we don't do. You already know I was going to use you for this one, Coyote. I heard you say okay behind me. Yep, you already knew. All right, so incapacitating blow on Ace. He goes down. He is not dead, but he is on the ground. Now, here is what we never fucking do. That is an unreactable, uncounterable story ender, and you will never do that. If someone hits the floor, you move on. That goes for extras, that goes for players. I don't give a shit who you are. You do not coup de grace. You do not execute someone on the ground. If they are on the ground, even if they're playing dead, if they're on the ground, you leave them there. If they're playing dead and then they get up and attack you again when you've got your back turned, you just continue the fight, and that's at their risk. They could just stay on the ground and stay safe. But that's up to them. Leave them be unless a DM tells you otherwise. Any other questions? See, Scaly.
Now, what happens if, say, worst case scenario, someone decides to abuse that system, and say, I don't know, there's an assassin coming to get them. They abuse that, and they just lay on the ground, kind of thing.
Can't hear what he's saying.
What then?
Please use the yell command if you're asking a question. Yeah, go ahead and switch the yell, please.
Oh. Ooh. My bad.
You're good.
Basically, what do you do if someone is, say, set to get assassinated, and they say, okay, worst case scenario, I'm going to abuse the system and just sit on the ground, they can't touch me, or they can't kill me, kind of thing.
So that one's kind of up in the air. Like I said, if you're going to play dead, you can play dead. That's kind of at your own risk. I would imagine that if a DM sees a player abusing the system in that way, or an extra abusing the system in that way, you're probably just going to get captured and thrown in jail, honestly. It's an assassin. They're trained to check your vitals. So, like, if you're playing dead and faking it and the assassin sees you, they're not going to go, oh, I guess he's dead. They're going to check your pulse and be like, hey, you're still alive. Come with me.
All right. Just
9 times out of 10, that assassin is more than likely going to be a DM or someone who is very trusted by the DMs and will be coordinated with very, very closely to make sure that the scenario you're in, if you're being hunted by the assassin, a bounty hunter, etc. Let me make sure I'm on yell here actually. Will be coordinated with properly, so that way the story being told there will properly be conveyed to everyone, including the people involved. That's the important thing here. We're not laying down to avoid story. We're laying down as a part of story, because the last thing you want to do is coup de grace someone as an assassin if you can help it, because maybe you want to bring in your target alive. Maybe you want to make sure that your client will pay before you finish them off. There are a million reasons to justify not killing someone right away when they hit the ground, and little to none to justify when they are. That's the importance here. That is the DM mission statement, is to tell a story.
Man is spitting facts over there. Damn, when's your album coming out, bro? Shit.
If you're captured,
any other
you can
questions?
Continue your story.
Can you explain what stealth is?
So most of the time, and this one's kind of up in the air as well. So some people might consider stealth as like using a cloaking ability, and now all of a sudden you're stealthed. And like, I would say yes in an active combat situation. The first time you cloak up, that is stealth, and you can get away with some form of stealth attack. Every time after that, most likely your opponents are going to be like, hey, there's somebody who's using cloaking, be about your wits. And they're going to keep a closer eye out for that sort of thing. They're not going to fall for it every time. That is to keep it from being abused.
As a personal note, one second. As a personal note, when it comes to stealth things, a good rule of thumb is if you have something like that where it actually is supposed to be a removal of someone's senses, like invis, something that still is fair for the sake of counterplay, because no invis is perfect in the setting, is something like
Yup.
from
Footsteps.
behind,
Make
and then
noises. Yup.
like make the sounds. You are not perfectly inaudible and unsensible to everything.
You're not solid.
Anytime
you're not completely undetectable. Also note, we should probably add the caveat about using weapons with stealth to tie into that too, as well.
If you shoot a gun while you're stealthed, you are no longer stealthed. Straight up.
Stealth.
You
is
might
a
get one
state
melee
of-
kill out.
Ultimately, stealth is a state of play that will be relevant during the time you are stealthed. For example, on a run, before engagement, just like how XCOM works, if anyone has ever played XCOM 2 specifically, when you enter a mission, you are considered stealth until you trigger the enemies. Once you start active combat, you are considered no longer in stealth.
And then you miss.
So something akin to like, kind of similar to like.
Only if you've
HP.
got a 90% chance of hitting.
Oh, that didn't uncloak me. Sorry about that. Let me do that again. HP. There we go.
Yeah, the moment you make an offensive action, you're breaking your stealth, you're breaking your cloak. And I would say anyone who has cloaking or any kind of concealment in that manner, don't use it more than once per like fresh engagement, because the odds are your enemies are going to know now, and they're going to keep an eye out for that sort of thing.
And of course, this is all context sensitive. Some people who have been involved on some of the runner missions know that there are some that will be opted into stealth only, where your objective is to not be found. In that case, stealth is not just an overall thing, but an engagement to engagement status that you must uphold during the scenario. It is something to keep in mind and to express the stealthy nature of our player characters, of our extras, of whoever the supporting cast or player characters cast may be. That is the point of stealth, is to tell a cool story about breaking into somewhere or getting someplace you're not supposed to be.
Okay, I see that hand. Mamnonera's been trying to ask a question like 4 times over now, so...
Just going off of stealth, do we necessarily have to have cloaking or something? Or like, say like me, I'm just a normal person. Can I try sneaking up behind someone to attack them that way? Or do I physically have to have stealth on?
I would call that contextual. So you, in how you look now in that model, you could probably get away with sneaking up on somebody once. Me or Fritz, we're armored up, most likely carrying multiple guns. You know, we make big stompy noises when we're moving. No fucking way. No one's gonna let us sneak up on them.
All right.
Yeah, if you're a big hulking bruising
Unless you do
character,
the
you're gonna make
old-fashioned hide
thuds.
behind a wall and wait.
Or heavy armor.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah, so something that I did with Ari was that I did a lot of behind the wall waiting. We were like across from each other. You remember, like 2 runs over, we did that, and it was just waiting. We had somebody lure them over, and that's because we know that I can't walk around stealthed. It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
The
what's that?
Just come up.
It could come down to something as simple as, like, part of someone's character sheet. For example, Angela, she's very a lightweight character. I might be able to get away with tiptoeing behind someone with my knife drawn from behind.
Yeah,
And you have
Lilith is
one more
kinda
question
similar
of
as
your own
well,
explorer.
Like I believe we also have one on the top left from Doge.
Back to the coup de grace, I was wondering, maybe we were thinking it, but what if the case when someone's like down the ground, but they still decide to, shoot or attack in some way?
If you are on the floor, to avoid being coup de grace or whatever, and you decide to attack on the floor, you are signing yourself up to get shot in the face while you're on the floor. Straight up. You are no longer safe.
That is what we
Actions and
call in the business
consequences.
re-engagement, and it doesn't matter.
Yep,
what
that
your
is you
stance when
re-engaging, and you are
re-engaging.
back in the engagement. Mm-hmm.
If I die with bullets in my
The
gun,
question
I'm a
was
bitch.
just going to go along the lines of when it comes to stealth, specifically on runs, because with character, combat, that would immediately go into allowing both characters to play through the story in combat, but necessarily on a run against extras or NPCs, whatever you want to call them. If you were to come behind them silently and then stab them, would that give them the chance to immediately start combat and you're no longer stealth, or killing them in that way would be able to keep the stealth for the rest of the mission?
So the way that that got treated pretty much all last season is a good way of treating it, and it's mostly DM side that when that sort of thing happens, that is a radio signal that people check in on, and especially in guarded areas and like runs and things like that. Most likely those guards are checking in with radios. They are making sure that rounds are being done, so they'll notice if a radio goes quiet or if somebody misses a check-in. So your deckers need to hack into that radio and pose as that person, and that might only work on occasion, that might only work temporarily. Eventually you'll take down too many people and they'll start to catch wind and they'll start looking for people more actively. Patrols will start picking up. You're not broken out of stealth yet, but now they're alert. If it happens too much, or if DMs decide combat needs to start, they'll go on full alert and they will just start sweeping and shoot on sight whatever they see. That could also happen if a body is found. It's very contextual. But usually stealth will only break if stealth needs to break for a loud thing to happen, like a large door being open or something being blown up, or if you are spotted and shots are fired.
Think Metal Gear Solid,
Payday
like
rules.
when a soldier finds a body, they're on alert. They're looking for something.
Yeah, well, they go into what's called caution, where they're starting to like pick up their patrols and check in more often. And they go on alert when they find you, and that's when combat actually is active. Anybody else? I may be blind, so yell at me if I don't see your hand.
Did you have a question, Fritz?
Bucky.
Over here.
Oh, no,
okay, there you go.
Just 'cause
my
it hasn't
question
been mentioned
was
before.
Manera's question, so.
Okay, yeah, just because it hasn't been mentioned before, 2v1s on the no-go list.
We'll talk about multi-fighting. Multi-fighting is actually fine if you do it right. It's a bit harder to do it right with melee than it is with guns, because you can kind of just shoot at multiple targets. But yeah, we'll cover that momentarily.
Major.
In terms of stealth, can you stealth take like pickpocket or steal something from one and not get alerted, or is that allowed?
I'd say that's context based.
usually pick a DM
That's
when
like
you're doing
a
that.
yeah, you'd call a DM for something like that, and they'd probably roll for you.
Oh yeah, of course, and that's something that it progresses the story, right? That's the idea that you're not just taking a combat action, you're being stealthy, you're encouraging this stealth motif for trying to enforce during the mission or whatever it may be, right? You're picking pockets,
Steal a key card.
you're throwing noisy distractions to distract guards
Imagine
to get
doing
them
that.
out of position. You're doing things that are out of the norm, and for things that are out of the norm that aren't one-to-one with the person you're interacting with, that is something you bring a GM into the fold for. That is something that is context sensitive, as we've been saying a lot of this has been. So if it's something that you wouldn't normally
I got one
see
for
here,
you.
ask a GM.
Just as an example of something that I want to see if DMs would be cool with, let's say I'm in the middle of a run and Coyote here is one of the guards. And I ask a DM for a roll to steal his gun. I get a successful roll, and I go, Coyote, from behind, takes your gun. Now, you've got something you need to do there. That is a portrayal thing, and I'd be going for your rifle. So you would, yep, he's got to super quick hand it over to me, and then I've got to hold it up to him. Now, you notice I don't fire here, but I've got him held up. You're going to make sure that your buddies know nothing is wrong on the radio. You're going to get fucking lost. You understand? Go.
Jump out the window.
I'm about to say, we actually did something like that for the Avalon mission with the one guard. We were
Yeah.
getting buddy,
And-
caught him off guard, grabbed his gun,
And-
grabbed him, and pulled him behind a wall.
We
As
sure
a
did.
GM,
I remember that.
That scenario is okay because the main point there was not to just take his gun and shoot him. You were there to grab his gun, get him in a situation that is advantageous to you, and progress the story. You didn't just grab gun and shoot. You didn't just like, oh, my win, haha, move on. This isn't a shooter. This isn't anything that you're meant to win in. That was a cool scene between the both of you, because now the person he's holed up is able to roleplay alongside him, and if the DMs give him any cool direction at that point, like, hey, Coyote, for your last action here, you're gonna put your finger up to your ear and you're gonna call on the radio, but for your last moment, you're gonna let them know that they're here. Like, that's a DM guided action. That's gonna be cool for him. It's gonna be cool for the players involved, and it's gonna cause a whole bunch of ruckus because that's the scenario that the story is rolled into.
One thing I would even say for something like that is just we want to avoid talk RP. So, long strings of I say what I'm going to do instead of actually doing it. But something like that, it's very easy to go, takes rifle.
Yep.
That's a very quick and easy way
I'd say
to let
from
the
behind
person
grabs your
know.
rifle.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it in
It's a
10 words or
very
less.
quick and- Yeah, it's a very quick
10
and
words
easy way to
less,
let
good
the
mentality.
person know what is going on so they can accomplish that action. Because you saw, even hearing that, I fumbled a little bit, right? There's always going to be scuff. There's always going to be those kinds of situations. But as long as it plays the scene out, then you're good.
I also said gun when I should have said rifle because I didn't see that you had two guns.
Yeah, because I heard you say gun, and I went for my revolver, because that's the one. Or I assumed that
active
you
with.
say gun, I was holding the gun, I expected you to reach behind me and disarm me. So being clear as well is important.
The careful thing is you want to be clear but concise, because the more words you use, the more likely you are going to start getting into a territory where you're not just dictating your action, but how they should respond to it, and that's...
I grab you by the head, headbutt you, stab you 17 times, kick your knee out from underneath you, and sleep the leg.
Behind, sweep the leg.
What does he do to
grapple.
that?
You better shut
What does
up,
he do to
or
that?
I will.
Yeah, that's
Everything you just said.
that's perfect.
It's not going to be.
Yeah, if you talk RP too much, if you talk RP too much
we'll be good.
and hit something like that, that's god modding. That is perfect. That's a very short, very concise action that gives them counterplay.
Damn it.
Also, I believe I interrupted your question. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Permission to use a gun for this real quick? Not shooting.
Oh,
but...
fucking go nuts. Go ahead.
So, I have a question in regards to this. Because these are not necessarily concealed when they're on us. If there is ever a point in a stealth mission where a weapon is meant to be concealed, is it just stated to extras or any other PCs that it is concealed, or would the weapon be removed from us and then given to us at a proper time?
That one is a part of the breakdown. So if your intent is to hide a weapon before going into a mission, because you should have a proper rundown before going into any mission. God, I would hope. I work super hard on briefs. Please don't let me forget a brief on a run. I will fucking shoot myself if I do. You should be thinking about the context of your mission. So you should be prepared for what you're going into. If the op calls for stealth, and you have a way to conceal your weapon, you have a secret pocket in your avatar, you have a special ability that lets you to hide something, you have a magic thing that lets you, make it look like something else, that is something you do a part of the pre-mission breakdown with yourself and the extras, or the supporting cast, rather. So that is something that will be intended, or will be displaying your intent, what to do with that in the breakdown, and that way when people run into it, they won't see guns on you, because that's a part of the portrayal, right? They will see just you. Because you already told them what's up with you.
We have a backpack system for that,
we also
right?
have the backpack system.
Yeah, but the backpack doesn't work for everyone.
Yeah, that system is neither here nor there.
It worked fine for me concealing weapons all season, but it's kind of person by person.
Cloaks are always a personal choice, because you can literally actually cover up stuff on your body with that.
And
these aren't the right weapons.
And
yeah, these are the right weapons, but if these are smaller firearms, I could hide them on the back, and this back cloak covers them up.
I will also say portrayal of the concealing area is important, because you could be in a base model and say I hide it in my jacket, but like I'll accept that, but come on folks, let's get a little more like cooler than that. You can put like a cloak or a backpack or a bigger pocket or something like on a model. I'm not saying you should, because that's more avatar
it in my
work,
nature's pocket.
But you know, yeah, in your nature pocket. But the idea is the more you
Please
convey
don't
this
put guns
stuff-
in your prison pocket.
Don't put it in your prison pocket. But the
Can't
more
stop
you
me.
are able to openly convey it, the less of like that time is put into having to tell that when you can show it, right?
In a sense, there's also a counterplay to this, because if you see this walking around in the upper city and you're suspicious, you might want to search this.
Can you trust anyone in a trench coat? I don't think you can.
Yes, let me walk in broad daylight in my full black trench coat. Guards might
Please don't
investigate
judge
that
the goth.
if DM's
Thank
thinking-
you.
Unless you are Bill.
I don't judge the goths. I judge people.
Yeah, what about Bill
carrying
Buck?
weapons in
That's a real
trench coats.
trustworthy individual. He wears a trench coat.
But
William Insect himself? Hey, yo.
Yeah, William Insect. He was almost
Okay,
there.
so we might need some more melee weapons for this. I am going to have every single one of you, unless you have a melee weapon on your avatar, please go get a melee weapon.
Yes.
Which is always the preferred if you can.
One last question. What do you want?
There are knives in the
Yo.
side if you want knives.
In regards to disarming weapons, because
Hold
there
on.
was the confusion that
Talk
Gary
about
had
this.
earlier to whether he was grabbing the revolver on his side or the rifle on his back. Would it be easier to just say, you know, grabbing the rifle or disarming your revolver, things like that? Just to make sure
I'd say
that if they
disarmed and then whatever gun, or I grab whatever gun, so on and so forth.
Okay, so that way it removes any confusion as to which gun they're necessarily grabbing.
Do these count?
I don't remember where I put it. There you go.
They do.
Do these? Yeah, do these count?
Yes.
Yes, I gotta learn how to play with them.
Claws are based. Claws are based as shit.
Based
Let me
claws.
show you what I've got. So
Claw
I have
crew,
actually- I
claw
have two
crew.
weapons on this arm. So
You know what's also
you see the silver knuckles there?
Shoulder shields.
Those are actual like metal knuckle pieces. So this is better for unarmed, on top of having the arm blade.
Yeah, they explode back in.
No.
I don't know anything about the electrical effects, to be honest.
Spells are
Pretty
much all of Angela's spells are mainly distance spells.
Timeless slash DMs. I have a bit of a question, actually. What if someone wanted to use a non-traditional weapon as melee, like, you know, a gun, and hitting someone with the
Ooh,
gun?
that is an excellent question, actually. So,
very true.
Interesting.
Okay, so to anyone who didn't hear it, Ari asked, what if someone wants to use a firearm as a melee weapon? If you want to make a, like, you want to poke somebody with the barrel, or, you know, hit them in the back with the stock, something like that. That is feasible. That is doable. It'll probably fuck up the gun. You do that at the risk of the weapon. Same goes for the vibro daggers. These do have blades. This is a blade when it's not on. You risk breaking it, because this is also where part of the emitter is, by not using it while it's on. The reason you would do that is for stealth purposes, because it does have a low hum while it's on.
It's hard to put stuff on my back.
All right. Everybody's got a melee weapon. If you don't have one, those with the power to spawn them, please get people armed up with those. We are going to get into portrayals. So this is the part where I'm actually going to start drilling you guys on shit. Yay, we get to do stuff.
Does anyone need a melee weapon and wants a knife?
You have ample arm space around you in the system as well.
Yeah, I got plenty. I just need this guy out of the way.
Let's try to not take too long getting set up here, folks. We are coming up to the hour-and-a-half mark.
Weapon.
I know we started a little bit late, so we'll probably run us a good 10 minutes or so later, and that is it.
I think I actually want one more high-tech sword, but I'm gonna be in the Undercity, so I think this is the best I'm gonna get.
Let's fucking go, Brady.
I am very late.
It's hard, to be honest.
You can't really reverse grip these things. They don't like reverse grip.
Alright, if everybody is armed up and ready, I would like your attention once more. We're gonna start going over some stuff and drilling.
Real quick.
Like I said, I'm not going to take up too much of your time, and we are coming up to our hour mark here, so we'll see what we can get through in the next hour, and if I can't run you through the rest of this by the 2-hour mark, then we will move it to next week.
Does everyone have a partner? I'm noticing I think we have some odd numbers.
Yeah, there is some odd numbers here.
Raise your hand, anyone who doesn't have a partner.
I got Scaly.
Apex, Major.
I had Grim. Did I go somewhere?
Yeah, he logged out. So you two are now partners, Apex and Major. Anyone else? Anyone else not have a partner? Kurlan. Kurlan does not have a partner. Can I get a volunteer from the stage to be his partner?
I'm partner. Literally, Fritz is standing in front of him. I know they're both tiny, but come on.
We're the same size. Fuck you.
Okay, I think we're all squared away.
It's just something about goblins, I think. I don't know.
Blow thing.
Wow, you just, wow, you're banned. You're banned.
Yep, tighten up, people. Let's keep it moving.
You should write a strong
Alright,
worded
so,
letter.
like I said earlier, a good chunk of what we're teaching is Portrayal, and the easiest and most translatable way to show off Portrayal is through Melee, which is why we're doing this. Incidentally, and conveniently enough for me, this is also like 90% of what I would teach in a Melee workshop, like a Melee-focused one, so, you know, kind of hand in hand. That's almost like it's, you know, Melee is like entirely based on Portrayal or something. Isn't that crazy? Here's a crazier thing. So is Magic. Magic is almost entirely based on Portrayal as well. So, Portrayal is accomplished in a few ways. Selling the skill of your portrayed character. So, you know, let's say that, example. Let's say Kurlan is playing a non-combat character. So the skill level in a fight, whether that's gun, magic, or melee, would be pretty low. They would be swinging their weapon around very haphazardly with no, like, real training or kind of like a precision behind it. Versus, let's say, Zab playing a combat character who may have melee training, utilizing their weapon in the way that it is best used. That is portraying the skill level of your character. It is very important to distinguish the skill level of your character versus your skill level. Here's a great example. I know how to shoot and use one of these better than almost every single person I know. That does not mean my character does. Yes, this character in particular does, but if I'm playing a non-combat character, I don't care how much I know about firearms. I don't know how to use this if I'm playing a non-combat character. Straight up, you have to separate your skill level out of character with your character's skill level and work on your character's skill level only. General portrayal of equipment or actions or mindset. Again, that's kind of in character, the mindset, but equipment is another one. So I'm going to use Zab as an example for equipment. If I was to I put the blade away for this. If I was to punch Zab in the chest with my hand, I'm probably going to break my hand. Meanwhile, if I was to punch Zab in the face with this arm, because this arm is built for that, right? That is equipment. This arm is technically equipment. It is meant for that sort of action. It is a metal prosthetic that is meant to fight people. Armor in that same vein. So if I'm punching flesh with armor, or if I'm cutting flesh with anything other than a vibro dagger. If you're using a regular knife, good luck cutting armor. If you're using one of these, you cut armor like it's butter. Blunt weapons, so that bat is actually really good against armor because you are crushing it instead of trying to cut into it. That is why metal fists work. Bludgeoning is good for armor. Slashing is good for flesh. You portray your equipment in that way.
No matter how good an armor is, a concussion is still a concussion.
Lastly, we want to respect each other's actions. So a very important bit of respecting each other's actions is, let's say that Star swings on Coyote, who blocks it, but Star is like, nah, fuck that block. I'm just going to keep swinging through, and just goes straight through the arm or just keeps on attacking instead of hitting that clash with the block, right? That is respecting the other player's action. In that same vein, Coyote could take that block and then just keep moving or pretend like there's no force behind it, and that is disrespecting the action. Or he could recoil down into it and prepare another free limb for counterplay.
Oh wait, can I show one that absolutely is not okay in a clash?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Try to hit me.
Dear God. Okay, first of all, that was clean as fuck. But yeah, don't do that.
That was pretty clean.
That looked good, but don't fucking do that.
Yeah.
So that is a top level no. You do not shoot from inside a melee engagement. You do not shoot into a melee engagement. You do not shoot out of a melee engagement. Players might shoot you as a coup de grace. If they do, it's because they're trying to look cool. It's whatever. So a good example of that versus what Ari did is if I come up to Coyote and I go, bam, let's pretend you're dead. You're on the ground. You're dying. I know you're dead. You're already dead, and I can... just to finish them off, and that's only something that players will do to extras. That should never be done by extras to players or players to players. And that is just for style points. That is how you finish off an already dead enemy, and only how you would finish off an already dead enemy. Other than that, guns, melee, you fucking separate them. Do not incorporate them into each other ever, because it's just unreactable and unfair. You're using one or the other. In that same vein, I mean, you can shoot somebody point blank if you're not a melee character, but expect to get shot back point blank. Yes.
So I have a grenade launcher. What do I do with that?
Oh.
Kick ass. Kick ass. I love you.
They do not pass go. They do not collect 2.
Okay, hold on. I got this. I got this.
Do not make it to Rush Hour 3.
As nicely as I could possibly say, unless the DMs end up saying it's kosher, no the fuck you don't. Oh god, a grenade launcher.
I'm getting a rocket launcher.
I mean, that's like, okay, let's do this.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Please someone take the RPG away from the wall before he blows us all up.
If you're in a melee engagement and you use a grenade launcher, or like, okay, so this happened with Coyote when he was playing Ace last season. I was sitting in a room with all the steel wings, and I had like 2 grenades on my person, and I really thought about grabbing both of them, popping the triggers on them, chucking them, and either running to or away from them and hoping to God for the best. And you know what? I probably would have died there, because that's what you should expect to happen.
Shrapnel's a thing.
Shrapnel's a thing. Even if you're away from the explosion, you might be dead anyway because of shrapnel.
I'm just screwed in general.
If you bring it to melee,
good luck with
expect to
that.
probably take your own life, because these are death
Yep.
balls. They have range.
I threw it.
Monko?
It's fine.
They're asleep. It's
So again, we're gonna do mostly melee. Again, we're gonna do mostly melee just because it works for Portrayal. But a lot of magic is Portrayal based as well. Yes, RK.
So earlier we were talking about, you said just now, don't shoot into melee and all that sort of stuff. But in a melee per melee scenario, how many people should engage onto one individual in melee, or is there not a recommended amount?
Ideally, you remain to a 1v1. We will talk about multi-fighting and how that works in melee. There's actually a pretty nice way of doing it. If you've ever played like pretty much any generic beat 'em up game, Yakuza or anything of that sort, you notice that they kind of come at you in waves. So if you're fighting multiple people, you're never really fighting more than one at a time. That's kind of how you want to treat it.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's the TLDR. We'll talk a little more about it later.
On a quick side tangent of that, if someone's in a melee combat, don't shoot into it. Give them the respect.
Do not shoot into melee. Do not shoot when you are within a melee. Do not shoot out of a melee.
Not only do you risk hitting the person that is your ally, but story,
You
selling a
disrespect them.
scene.
Oh yeah.
You're
Oh yeah. If you
interrupting
shoot
that
into a
scene,
melee,
shooting into it.
you're interrupting a melee fight, and the DM's probably gonna roll a friendly fire roll, and you're gonna shoot your buddy in the back.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to aim when someone's trying to punch you in the face.
Mm-hmm. What if you don't like your buddy?
Now, this is a question because I saw something happen up there with the little surprise shoot. What if you're not currently in combat and it's kind of like an assassination thing? Like something I was very tempted to do last season was do that and then just shoot. Kind of like a stealth thing. Not really stealth, just cover.
I mean,
Fire.
as an opener, I don't hate that, but like that's because that's a very obvious opener. That's like kind of a surprise attack thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with that personally. The DMs might disagree.
Just to make
That's
sure.
something you should still let a DM know, regardless of how you do it. And
It is going to be subject to letting a DM know.
And even then, some DMs might be less okay with it than others. So, like, you know, you might get away with that in the row, but in the upper city, the DM might be like, yeah, I'd rather not. Respect what they say. Okay, so let's talk Portrayal. Portrayal practices are central to ensuring your fights look good. This is accomplished through habitual practices within a combat, like making deaths and injuries look good. Show me how you guys sell your hits.
Do it. Bring it up, big guy.
Oh, damn, these two are fucking each other up. Holy shit. Damn.
Well, these two will kill each other. Oh, no, he's gonna bounce off.
Oh my god. Now you notice here that on both sides, both of them are still countering against each other. They are still actively attacking one another, even while they're going down, until there is a victor or they are both dead. They're just going.
This is excessive. I mean, I've never seen
Give me some real big.
Oh, damn.
Give me some real big.
As you're selling your hits, make sure that you know selling your hits can mean a few things. It's not just selling a hit that you take, it is blocking a hit, it is dodging a hit, it is respecting that your opponent threw out an attack. Whether or not you take it is up to the flow of the combat. Not every hit is going to land. Not every hit is going to connect. Not every hit is going to be effective. Some hits might be entirely missed. Some hits might be entirely blocked. Some hits might be entirely mitigated. Some people might be so tough that they can take a hit and move on. Remember that. Not every hit is going to be fully 100% lethal. Alright, 10 seconds and I want you all back. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, tighten back up, please. Very nice.
Bam. Hyper potion.
You guys are fucking crazy. So, yeah, selling your hits, selling your hits isn't always going to be the hit is lethal. Some hits are going to get blocked, some hits are going to be completely avoided, some hits are going to miss, yada yada yada, you know. You don't have to take every single hit, but you should sell the ones that you do take. Make sure that you react to that, even if it's just impact from blade on blade or blade on armor or whatever, even if it's just like dodging a miss, anything like that. Make sure that you react to what your opponent is doing so that their roleplay is being respected in that manner and you are selling the attack coming your way. Do you have a question? I wait patiently.
Oh, he does.
Me?
Oh. Doge,
Yes, you had your hands up. Oh, Doge? Oh!
So my thing was that I was just going to say and or ask, would it be in the right manner to say I'm fighting somebody who has this kind of blade and I have a wooden bat? It would be right for me to RP that if he cuts this and I try to blocking it, it gets cut in half.
Oh, he gonna cut that bat like it's fucking butter.
Why are you fighting a
with
bat?
Listen, all right, slummers make do. Sometimes you kind of need to fight somebody wielding the vibro blade with a bat. It just be like that. Yeah, you fight with what you got.
It's hard.
Sometimes we just don't have shit in Detroit. It's fine.
If Gil of Rivia can get done in by a pitchfork, anything's possible.
If you have, for example, claws, and your opponent has a much longer melee weapon, what's a good way to kind of close in on that?
Ooh, closing in. Okay, so actually, I want to be part of the demonstrator for this, because in the big one, we went up against these fuckers a lot. Now, the best way to close in, and whether you, especially since you have claws plural, the best way to close in on someone who outranges you is to have multiple weapons, because you've got multiple limbs to react. So, going up against one of these shrimp motherfuckers, right, I would wait for them to swing on me. We block that swing, we come down on the blade, and we either bring a hand back, stab to the arm, we incapacitate them, now they're down, that's to the neck. There's a lot of ways you can close in if you only have one weapon, or you have no weapons. The best thing to do is keep that weapon in front of you and be ready to block, and use the other limbs at your disposal. So now, I've got a few options here, right? And you need to kind of think on this in the moment, but when you're in this lock, the best thing I could do, because if I kick him, I'm wearing regular clothing, even though these are steel-toed boots, kicking him isn't going to get me very far. So instead what I want to do is I want to grab his hand and try to redirect that blade by pushing against on the right. And if I can get him down, I take my hand and I lean down on it. I hit my chair, holy fuck. I lean down on it, and then we keep that there. There's a lot of different ways to close in. You kind of got to get creative.
On that note, there is no shame in taking a hit to get in close.
Yeah, you can take injury to get in close as well, if you need to do it. If you need to take a stab to the arm or the leg or the shoulder. Like, so the thing about stabbing someone, it doesn't really work with the vibro blades, but like, let's say I was to land the first hit here, and I stab him in the shoulder, I'm now locked in with him, right? And I have to dig that out of armor. In the meanwhile, he can do whatever he wants. So, he goes for the knee, I start going down, and I'm still in him here. But now I'm on the defensive, he's got my arm, he's locked me in two places now, and I have next to no way of getting out of this, right?
And also, don't forget that you can dodge a swing just because a swing is coming in. If you have the means to move out of the way, you do not have to always parry or block. You can sidestep someone, and just if they're coming at you, you can just be like, come to the side, and now they're having to reposition.
Or they do a heavy arc, and you sweep under it, or you do a way to outmaneuver it.
One of my favorite things to do.
You can duck it.
One of my favorite things to do as a larger unit is those big, arcing swings, because it gives people time to react to them. It gives people time to plan.
Like a boss fight.
Because if I just did this, like Timeless, if I just did this,
what am I supposed to do? I take it to the shoulder.
How do you react to that, right? But if I do this,
it's a lot more reactable. I can block it, I can hold it down, I can sidestep out of the way.
Because the blade comes up, yes, you're moving faster, but I telegraphed this movement. And he has time to react.
Yeah, we'll get more into telegraphing very shortly, because I'm going to make people slow this shit down, no matter how slow they're being. So another good practice for just generalized portrayal is showing off weight and fatigue, how heavy your gear is and how tired that makes you. So in my current state, I have 3 weapons on me. I have a vibro dagger, probably weighs like 2 pounds max. I've got a handgun, probably weighs like 4 pounds loaded, and I've got a rifle, probably weighs like 8 pounds loaded, right? First of all, guns and swords are a lot fucking lighter than you think. I promise you. If you you look at a Zweihander, right? In Skyrim is why people think this. The iron sword in Skyrim weighs like 8.5 units, right? No, an iron sword would weigh like 2 pounds.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
2 pounds.
Zweihanders, big ass fucking two-handed swords that are like 6 feet tall.
5 to
They weigh
6.
like 4.5 pounds.
5 to
Yeah,
6.
like 5 to 6 max. Usually like 4.5-ish. Weapons are lighter than you think. So I've got maybe a collective like 15 pounds in weapons at absolute max loaded plus my ammo. I'm still going to be running around like I have no care in the world. I'm moving at full speed, okay? Now, let's say I am armored up and carrying around much heavier weapons. If I could swap to my fucking armor. Armor slows you down. Armor is weight.
Yeah.
I would love it if I could
Especially
swap,
if it's
please.
heavy
Thank
armor.
you. Yes, especially if it's heavier armor. So, big fucking honking suit of armor. Let's grab another rifle here. Why not?
And you're also
So,
gonna be able
I've
to
got,
actually
like-
take it off as well.
I've got like 4 weapons and a full suit of armor. I'm going to move it like half stick, right? And in that same vein, if I'm in a fight, instead of fighting faster, I'm now fighting a lot slower because of that. So instead of being like on the balls of my feet like I usually am with him, when I'm armored out like this, it's a lot slower, it's a lot more paced, and my hits are both heavier and slower.
But they should hit harder, right? If they're slow.
They should hit harder. So they'll hit harder if you're wearing like heavier armor. Not only because metal fist hurts more than flesh fist, but because there's weight behind it. You got like another couple pounds behind the actual hit.
Similar capacity, consider how your weight is distributed as well. So like at this point in time, this guy is pretty light. Light jacket, maybe some Kevlar here, but the second I put these on, this is gonna be heavy. This is gonna be pulling me back this entire time. My swings are
Until
going to
they're
be more clumsy because I have all this weight pulling me around in the back. So just keep that in mind for your character if you have any sort of armor or
Or like
additional
that guy.
attachments or anything of that nature.
Yeah, Jones.
I
Hi.
remember the days you ran.
And that also goes for if you have like cybernetic or prosthetic limbs, or if you're synthetic. Synthetics, you guys are just heavier in general. You're made of metal. Your hits feel like getting punched by metal. But for those of us with cybernetics, so I have a cybernetic arm, right? When I'm in a fist fight with this character, I treat this arm like it's got a bit more weight behind it because it is a combat-based arm. This is meant for unarmed fights and melee fights with the arm blade. But that arm blade adds a bit of weight. So this arm, like if I was to put my actual arm at like 5 pounds, this is probably like 10 pounds, right? So when I stance up, instead of them both being like equally speedy and stanced up and fast, I keep this one a bit lower and it's a lot slower than I would make like my actual jabs with this arm, right? And that's the thing is you want to go for like the jabs and the crosses with this. And then with this one, you go for like underhands and overhands and like bigger hooks. That's how you sell your weight and you sell your force. You make more forceful actions with anything that might have more weight or force to it. Another big part of Portrayal is, dear God, your willingness to stay alive. I don't care how much of a death wish your character has, how crazy they are, they probably don't actually want to die. So you play like that. You don't play like an idiot who runs into every engagement or just fights anybody they see. Even if your character's angry or aggressive or whatever, the exceptions here are anything similar to Orc Rage, because you kind of lose track of yourself when you are in some kind of barbarian or Orc Rage state. Otherwise, you should be trying to preserve your life. Yes.
So that would imply that if you're in the Undercity and you hear gunshots, you shouldn't run towards them, right?
The only time you should be running towards gunshots, the only time you should be running towards gunshots is if you are ready to shoot back and risk your life doing so, is if you are a combat character who is ready to risk your life in doing so. If you are a non-combat character, you should not be running towards gunfire to go see what the fuck's going on. You should be ducking down and finding cover or trying to find someone to protect you.
Last thing
In
you
that
want is
same
getting
vein,
shot.
in that same vein, we want our combat characters to understand that non-combat characters are going to try to run away from engagements if they happen to be in one. So let's say, Kurlan, let's say you're in the middle of a fight between the Wyverns and the Steel Wings. You're like in the middle in the crossfire. The Wyverns are going to call you over. They're going to be like, we'll give you cover, get over here. And we expect you to run towards us as we give you covering fire and not to run into the bullets. In that same vein, and this is why we want non-combat characters to come to these workshops, is what does a non-combat character do when somebody runs up them with a knife and is like, I'm gonna fucking stab you? You try to dodge that hit, and you try to run away, cower, beg for mercy, whatever it is you were going to do. You need to know how to react. So even if it's so much as I make the swing and you grab the hand to keep me from swinging, you take that second to block out however you can, and then you can like kick the knee, you can push away, do whatever you need to do, and then immediately fucking dip. We don't want non-combat characters trying to fight when they don't know how to fight. Now, you might be playing a non-combat character or a mostly non-combat character who ends up receiving training. If that is the case, then yeah, you would know how to use a gun if you get enough training with one. Yeah, you would know how to swing a sword or a bat or whatever if you get enough training to use one. You are still going to get outpaced, outmaneuvered, and outclassed by anyone who does it for a living because they have had years of training minimum. That is something that is very integral to Portrayal from a non-combat standpoint. Understanding that your goal is to stay alive, which means your goal is to get away from whatever is going to make you dead.
I believe we have
Yeah.
3 questions.
Oh, I see two. Hey, yo.
Oh, and Scaly as well.
So on the topic of running away,
Go ahead.
Because I know there are different speeds in the Undivided maps, but say you are both characters who have similar speed types, how would you really sell if someone could have a chance to really catch up to them in those situations of someone trying to run away?
I mean, if somebody's faster than you, they're gonna dip. If someone's slower than you, that's kind of contextual. So, like, DMs might tell a group of runner guards that X character has a slowness detriment and to ease up on them, maybe not chase them so hard. As for the same speeds, if you expect to catch up and you are the same speed, you're not going to unless you do some smart movement. You maybe duck into an alley and utilize your characters, not your personal knowledge of the map, your character's knowledge of the map, to make their way around in whatever way works best for them.
Also, fatigue is a thing.
Fatigue is a thing. Yeah, that's so selling weight and equipment. Like, again, if you're wearing heavier armor and carrying more shit around, when you're in a fight or when you're running for an extended period of time, you can expect yourself to be slowed down. Something that I do with this character is he's got a vitality major, which I kind of treat like endurance. So he's a little bit better at staying in the field for longer. That's for like long form engagements. But he still gets tired. At the end of like 3 fights, I'll fucking have him take a knee and wait until the group is ready to move again.
So for a character who was, because I know the system will be changing somewhat, I'm not too sure because no announcements have been made yet. But for a character who has been learning combat over like the course of 2 seasons, where does that put them up against people who have been doing this stuff for like a living?
2 seasons is 2 years. You can learn a lot in 2 years. I guess it depends partly on how much of that is off screen and how much is on screen, but it is safe to assume that you are confident in a gunfight and you are confident in a melee fight. Just know that people who do it for a living might still have an edge over you off of sheer skill that comes from time.
Yep, just checking.
I believe there's one more question. I do not know.
Scaly,
who.
I believe.
Yeah, Scaly.
Scaly. I was coming back up here. Hold on.
Might be a
Okay, go
little
ahead.
bit awkward, but I remember you said that just casual players run away. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I may have to change something if that's the case. But depending on your flaw, or hell, even your benefit, you could run towards it. Because with me, my flaw is I'm like a fucking dog. I hear a gunshot, I go right towards it to say, guys, peace and love.
If it's your flaw,
Kill yourself
play
in the
your
arena.
flaw. DMs know
Play to your
about it.
Yeah, if it's a character trait, absolutely play to your character. And like the combat characters are going to be like, hey, you don't know how to fight, get the fuck out of here. You can ignore them if you want.
The big thing is, if you're a civilian running towards a combat scenario, there's a chance you're going to get caught in that combat scenario. You're going to get shot. You might end up down. Understand that that will happen.
If you have no attributes that like make you go towards that and you're not a combat character, by you running towards it just to see what's happening, you're basically telling everyone else that your character is consciously going towards a gunfight because they want to see what the cool thing is happening for. And like, yeah, you out of character might want to know what's going on. Understand that you're going to have to learn that in character and when somebody tells you, because it's just unrealistic that you would be running towards a gunfight unless there is something on your sheet or some level of training that would incentivize you to do so.
You gotta value.
Yeah, medics are non-combat characters who most likely would run towards combat, but they know when to stop. They know where a good point in, like, okay, maybe I should stop right about here where there's a bunch of cover and a bunch of allies, and I should wait for an opening that I am given by those other people in the fight to go and collect wounded.
Or, by extension, work with those combat characters to evacuate the wounded.
Angela's not necessarily a combat character. She is armed. If I can see an opportunity to get some civilians out, I might take out my weapon, and shoot over them by covering fire so they can get away, but I won't directly engage. Unless he orders me to, because I'm a wyvern.
I'm not.
God, I can't wait to run with my wyverns. You guys are gonna be so good. Can I just? I'm so fucking excited for next season, guys. I've got a bunch of really baller combat people who are gonna be doing cool wyvern shit with me, and I'm very excited.
You're excited. Feel these.
Just want to get that out of my system. Cutting diamonds over there?
What? Hell yeah, baby!
Hell yeah!
Fred to say something like that.
Okay, so something I want to talk about is skills. Capo, Knick-Knack, whoever the fuck, I would like you to give me like leap or like high jump or some shit real quick.
You can summon a sheet as well in this if you have the ability. Yeah.
I've got super leap on standby, timeless.
I've got leap as well, already on.
Okay, yeah. So in that case, you're gonna be my guinea pig. So we all know that there are some skills that are added to your sheet by some crazy fucking udon magic when you load into the map. So, for example, these steel wings have leap, which is shown off by the wings on their back. Go ahead. They get to do shit like this. Look at him go. He's so spicy. That's crazy. Now, something else that we have are more passive skills, like your armor rating that comes from the armor that you put on. The only way to reflect that is if you are in a armored up model, or in my case, a vitality major, like I said earlier, that basically gives me double health. There's no real way to portray something like a vitality major clearly enough for anyone to see it, so you need to learn how to portray that in character. So if Ace here was to punch me in the chest, I'm wearing armor and he's wearing armor, and that metal fist is going to make me recoil a bit, but I'm not going to go down, right? Now, in that same vein, the average unarmored character is going to take that same hit and probably go down. But in the case of someone with a vitality major, he's going to hit me in the chest, and I'm going to recoil and come right back up. And that shows him I might have a bit more endurance and a bit more ability to take a hit than most people. So now he's going to serious up a bit more for this fight, right? That is a silent way of telling him that I don't go down easy for whatever reason. Whatever reason you have going on your sheets, it doesn't matter. If it is something that you cannot convey physically, you need to find a way to convey it through your portrayal. It's easiest to do with like armor and health because you can show off the armor. If you've got the money for an armored model, however you do that. Or extra health, you show that off by not going down to some things that you might go down to otherwise. There's a limit, practice it. And other things that are a bit more passive are a little bit harder to portray. If you are not sure, maybe get somebody around to kind of practice how you would portray that. A lot of things are pretty visible, but mostly like increased health is kind of hard to show. So you need to find ways to show that when you are using your portrayal in a fight.
Now,
let's see.
What
We
about,
already.
what about the other case of if they're beefy, but if they're speedy, like the character is naturally agile?
Oh, hey, that's also me. So, yeah, again, in that case, so if you are speedy, a lot of your speed is shown off in your actual movement. So, like, you just genuinely physically left stick around faster. But, so in that same vein, I have a vitality major and I have a speed increase for a minor. So what I would do then is maybe speed up my actions in a fight a little bit more if I'm showing that off. You just punch a little bit quicker, swing a little bit faster, telegraph a little bit less. There's a very fucking fine line to that where you start becoming unreactable. So especially for speed, you need to practice the shit out of speed if you're going to do that. That is a very thin line between unreactable and showing off speed.
You don't want to get to the point where you're anime like we described earlier.
Some things to consider when you are trying to make sure that you're not unreactable. Ping. Some of us live in Australia and other places, and compared to everybody else, your ping, your latency is going to be in the hundreds. Some of us have worse internet, same thing. That is going to create delays. So something that I want Coyote to do is hold up a hand for a high five when I tell you, and I will take that high five when I see it. Okay? Go. Now, I don't know what that looked like on your guys' end, but that was like my best reaction time that I could possibly pull out of that, and it was like a quarter second late on my end. It was probably like a second and a half to 2 seconds late on what you all saw, right? That's latency. That is a VRChat feature. That's ping, that's freaking latency, that is frames, that's the internet in general. There are 900 different reasons why something like that might happen. So a really, really good a really good mindset to have when it comes to paying attention to that sort of thing is make sure your telegraphs or your actions or whatever you need to be reacted to, you give them about a 2-second window to make that reaction happen.
In terms of that, what if someone crashes in the middle of like a one-on-one?
Okay, so if
it happens more often than
if somebody crashes, even if it's like the culmination of your fucking arc and you're like in the arena with them and it's a fight to the death and they crash, well, they crashed and like we'll scuff it away and they'll either come back and resume it or you move on, whatever the DMs want you to do. It's scuff. Anytime scuff happens, we're all good about moving on from scuff.
Do your best to work with
don't
it.
hold yourselves up too much on it. Yeah, try to work with it. If you can't work with it, don't hold up on it.
You took an opportunity to flee or something like that. Or they took an opportunity to flee.
Another big part
Alright,
of...
I'll rematch you another day. Play with this.
Yeah, you could do something like that. Yep. Assume that they hit the ground and got knocked out.
Classes, you don't get to just take advantage of them when they cannot do anything. Like, that does not mean you automatically win. If it, depending
all
on the
about respecting the
situation, if
player.
there was like a... Depending on the situation, you might have to pause and wait for things to resume so that things can be fairly portrayed if you got an unfair advantage because someone tripped over their cable and yanked it out of the computer.
I want Capo for this one. Come hither.
Same.
Okay, so let's say this is going to be on what I said earlier, actually, in that we are respecting actions. So as you are doing your stuff, you want to make sure that your opponent or whoever you are interacting with has the opportunity to react to what you do. We talked about that earlier. We also want to respect their reactions and understand that we need to portray as we do that. So, big fuck off armored up wolf boy, man in general clothing. Yes, I may have robo arm. It doesn't help me with everything. So if I try to grab him and put him in a grapple, he's going to tilt his head and look at me like I'm fucking insane and probably headbutt me. Like that. Now, alternatively, let's say that, let's say Ari and Star were to get into that grapple. They're a bit more evenly armored. They're a bit more evenly sized. They get into that grapple and they can resist one another. They can actually just kind of try and find out who's going to win that grapple. Now, when that happens, there's a couple of options. DMs might come in and roll for you, or you might have an attribute or something. Now, if I am armored up, I've got a bit more weight and a bit more force behind me, so if I get into that grapple with Capo here, if I get into that grapple with Fenris, now we get to struggle, and he has something that he can tell me, doesn't he?
Hey, let me switch to Yell for this one. So, this goes into the point of expecting player action. Strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so even if we're more evenly matched for this grapple, that is notice all he did was he turned that on and said strength. And that is all I need to know that I am now losing this grapple that would have been a struggle. And I get to go fucking flying. But in that same vein, let's say somebody doesn't have that and it is a more even match. So I was to be big armored boy and just go uppies.
That's my boy you're holding there.
That's when it's okay to shoot him in the dick. You realize that, right? Like that's when it's totally acceptable.
You could strangle him with surprisingly little effort. Just go ahead and do that.
Take the baby.
Act like a chicken.
Jesus. I actually did something like that in a run. That we had a run on Avalon, and Foamy was playing an Avalon guard, and like tried to hold us up. And I straight up walked up, grabbed her by the throat, lifted her up, and said, "You have 5 seconds to put your gun down." She didn't do it, so I went. Yeah, you can get some pretty spicy shit going. When people respect Portrayal. So when I did that, Foamy play spaced up and took the neck break and fell down as I dropped them, right? And that is absolutely respecting the size and strength difference there. Play space mover.
It's very good.
There's a toolkit thing that you can get. I think it doesn't work for Quest. I have no idea. But it helps you do a lot of things. It helps you like mix your little small corrections. So if you're like too into the floor when you spawn in, you can kind of bring yourself up, things like that. Locomotion, you can turn that off. So instead of doing your sit down and yeah, so you see OSL is floating as she's sitting. Now let's say that Fenris is walking over to medical carrying.
Renegade's your medic, go.
Float.
I have a medic right here.
Now, meanwhile, if I have locomotion on and I was to do something similar, oh god, what is my body doing? You can turn off locomotion to avoid that problem, right?
Right.
Yep.
And that is in your settings. It's in your cogwheel. You will see that under locomotion animation. That is below your height. It's like 2 categories below your height.
It's a picture of feet.
I knew I forgot to add
Yes.
box or something. I still need to be able to...
Engage your wheelies.
Now, sequence breaking. Sequence breaking is a big hecking portrayal tool, especially in melee and magic fights. Sequence breaking is, especially for those of us who have been to Fractured Thrones and other like melee focused role plays, you understand sequence breaking like it is your lifeblood because it is what helps you get through those 8-hour sessions. So, show me a melee fight where you sequence break. Show me a melee fight where you give each other room because you kick each other away, you push someone away through a throw, especially when they are fatigued. If you hear your other role player is breathing heavily, that might be their character or that might be them. There is any amount of reasons why they could be breathing heavily like that, so you give them the room. You kick them away, you push them away, and instead of taking the advantage when that happens, you give them the space to recover and bring themselves back back in. You can prompt a sequence break yourself by kneeling to the ground, taking a fall, retreating, stepping back. Anything like that portrays a sequence break. This is a silent way of telling people that you need to take a breath, unscuff yourself in whatever way you need to unscuff. Maybe you need to untangle a wire or adjust a tracker. Maybe you need to take a sip of water because the fight's just been going on for that long. That is what that is for. You create space. In whatever way you can create space, you do so. And instead of pressing the advantage, your opponent should give you that space. If ever you see a sequence break happen or space being made, respect that space and give them the room to breathe, because they might need it. Thank you, guys.
Cool.
Any questions on sequence breaking?
That's some good ASMR.
Throw my thigh.
Some good ASMR. Some good yelly ASMR. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Don't forget to be spatially aware while you're fighting.
That.
Don't want to punch.
You know what's crazy? That's actually all I have besides drilling. So, fucking, we get to drill on shit now. I see a question. I know, right? It's crazy.
And my head that's
How do you
die for the
portray
second
when
time.
you're doing melee
Let's
against someone who
go.
has magic?
Ooh, okay, so hopefully most magic is also portrayed in the same way, but it's pretty contextual to whatever their magic is. So if they got like beams and AoE stuff, it's a bit harder. But in the case of, say, Star, oh, I see a shocky hand, so...
Man, that's a damn shame that armor is made of metal, isn't it?
Now you noticed when I took that fall and pirouetted to the side to get away from it, and even though I'm on the ground in a shitty position, Star just got hit in the head with a metal glove and is probably going to be at least dazed for a second. That is a sequence break that gives me time to stand up and both of us time to reallocate. So it's very contextual to what the magic is. Hopefully the players with magic are utilizing magic that is easy to portray and show and makes it easier to react to. But some stuff might be a little bit harder. If they do like any AoE stuff in a melee situation, it is assumed that that is non-lethal, because otherwise it would probably kill them too.
That's why I recommend nothing too flashy when it comes to magic, but also something that's easy for everybody to see, something that possibly has a small noise to it that still goes within our guidelines for avatars.
And something with active implications. So Star has like electricity on her arm. That is easy to know that you are going to be taking some type of electrical reaction. You're going to be shocked. You're going to react to being shocked, anything like that. In the same vein, Capo here has like icicles. That is like... That's gonna freeze. That's gonna be cold as fuck. It's going to like harden you up and paralyze you a little bit as you're fighting because you're reacting to literal frostbite.
Yeah, this is shadow damage. It's necrotic. Your flesh is going to literally start decaying if this comes in contact. It's going to burn.
Yeah, and that might be a little bit harder for people who don't know just off looking at it.
Yeah.
So when OSL gets into a melee engagement with someone,
you get infected.
Jesus Christ. So if they're going to get into, yep, shadow or necrotic or something, so I know how to react. Now, preferably, you're going to, again, be trading that information with a DM before a fight breaks out, if you have the time to do so. If not, you can do it on the fly. So something that I do is, well, what we did in runs and what I do in any fight, if I get the opportunity, is I inform people that the arm blade I have here, you may notice it is ridged. It is not a straight blade. You see the little black ridges on it there? This is not meant for cutting flesh. This is an armor rending blade. This specifically targets armor and fucks armor up. So in this case, I would not stab through him until I've made an opening. So I would go cut, cut, stab as I've made that opening, right? And that's the whole reason I fucking made it against armors, for fuckers like you.
Now, and this is different for also armor levels. Like Kevlar, it's going to be a different story. That's lighter. You're going to cut through that. But this is heavy corporate armor.
Yep, so it's going to take a bit more effort. It's going to take a bit more effort to cut through metal, even with a blade that is meant to rend armor.
And a note for fair portrayal: just because you see a weak spot, that doesn't mean that you are always going to be able to perfectly aim for it in the heat of combat. Like,
Oh God, please don't say you take a chink in the armor. Go fuck yourself if you say that.
like I shouldn't be able to always perfectly go for the neck if he's actively fighting me. Like I shouldn't be able to like just go.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
If you
have
mind real quick,
to
Tommy, so mind if I
work
tune in
for
for a second here? So the big thing about this, we're talking about equipment, we're talking about like having equipment that is for different situations and stuff like that. And the beauty about combat RP is that combat RP feeds into your normal RP when you really think about it. Because without running into big, heavy armored people, Timeless, as his character, probably wouldn't have considered that type of weapon had he not run into bigger armored people. If he hadn't noticed that a lot of people are toting corporate armor, if he hadn't been on runs and seen a lot of the guards he's dealing with.
That's why I got the arm. I noticed heavy guards were showing up more often, and we saw Guardian Angel, and I was like, yeah, fuck that. I want something that can help me if something like that happens. I started going on Wasteland runs and saw that the crabs had armored chitin, and I wanted something to deal with that.
And hopefully coming into next season we'll be able to expand on it, but we're still working on it, so don't quote me on anything I'm saying here. But the idea is that the more things we give you visually to work with, the more to RP engage with, the more expressive your combat RP will be, thus influencing your not combat RP to affect one another. Because when you get engaged with something, you interact with something, you gain knowledge, not just out of character, but more importantly in character knowledge that will influence your decisions. Equipment, weapons, and just things you do to your character will work in every aspect of this RP. That's the beauty of RP. Timeless, if I started throwing gang members at you all of a sudden, that arm isn't going to be as effective because now it's practically a blunt instrument because they're not wearing any armor. So you might have to go switch it up. You might have to go consider other options.
And that's what this is for.
Exactly.
So I put the blade away and I go into a stance with the fist where I'm punching people and they take that force with the knuckles, and I take that vibro dagger where it will actually rend flesh. I put the blade away.
And that's the whole point here, is that this is to portray what your character does in a very cool way that affects your RP. That's the whole point of all this. That's what I wanted to chime in with, is that your combat RP affects your normal RP, and your normal RP affects your combat RP. Because even if you're not a combat heavy character, if you're a sleuth, if you're a sycophant-like character, it doesn't mean you can't go investigate and find out what you're going to be working with in the future. Like, if you're going to be setting up a run against Masaru as a corporate character or something of the sort, you still need to worry about what Masaru is going to be bringing to the board for your best chance of success. So maybe you go poking around Masaru's facilities, maybe you go interrogate one of their guards and kidnap them or something like that, and you get information about where that facility is going to be, what they're equipped with, stuff like that. That is information that feeds your normal RP into your combat, and your combat into your normal RP. That's the beauty of it.
Yep, we're going to get on that. I'm actually about to have people drill, and that is the first drill we're going to cover, but Weathered has a question.
I was going to ask more, when it comes to melee for synthetics versus magic users, how would that really work?
You know, we just spent over 24 hours answering that
question. Quite literally 24 hours.
More on that later. Okay, so TLDR, they were discussing magic and synthetic interactions and tried to balance it, and then we also found out that like mutations are a thing, and that's a third pillar now we have to worry about. So they're kind of working on that. We'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
I would say that
Generally speaking, I would assume that it's
the general logic of like elemental damage would probably damage a synthetic, but like, I mean,
it's a good question to ask. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, like a good general sense would be like shadow magic wouldn't do much synthetic because that's meant for flesh, but a electric attack would probably by extension have a little more. Yeah.
If it would fuck up organic matter and only organic matter, it probably doesn't do much to synths.
Yeah.
We civilized
it.
it.
Context based.
Against you because you don't have blood.
All right.
As far as I know, I don't.
I want to get us into drills before we run out of time, so I want my shrimp to be right here, Mr. I have shields on my shoulders and back and a fucking sword, you overpowered bitch. I want you two on the right, I want you two on the left, and you are going to show me a good multi-fight that Coyote can react to and be respected in. Please do not mob him. The key to a multi-fight is to never mob your targets. If they do not see you, they cannot react to you. If they do not hear you, they cannot react to you. So if they don't see you, make sure they can hear you, or vice versa. In this case, if Coyote is facing OSL and Ariana first, he will react to them and only them, and these two will not be able to make an action that he can respect. So, if they want to push the offensive, what they need to do is they need to tell him in a way that gets him to turn around to face them so they can engage with him, which is when these two will disengage and take that time to rest, recuperate, reallocate themselves. That is a multi-man sequence break. That is how you do that. Go ahead.
Okay, opening.
Now you see, for something like this, it is actually pretty okay to come at him twice at a time or whatever, because he's got shoulder and back shields. You know, they can actually kind of do that. They can get away with attacking him twice on. But for someone who doesn't have shoulder and back shields, or a bunch of fucking armor that you have no way of dealing with, ideally you come at them one at a time. You attack, you get a sequence break, and then instead of recovering and going back in, you recover, and while you're recovering, your partner in that multi-man fight, or your opponent in that multi-man fight, will come in instead of you.
Fall back! Did they upgrade these?
To run out of energy at a time like this.
It makes me really a little bit.
Oh god, there goes Star.
Whoa.
All right.
Put her 6-year-old.
All right. So, oh my god, they're still going back there. Jesus Christ. So again, the key there is that anything that cannot be seen and cannot be heard cannot be respected. So that brings us back around again to the FOV and the from behind and from the side. If they can't see you, they need to hear you. If they can't hear you, they need to see you. If they can do neither, they cannot respect your actions. They cannot understand what you are doing. And the worst thing you can do in a multi-man fight is mob somebody. There should never be more than 2 people attacking one person at a time in a multi-fight, or else it is completely unreactable. They're going to panic. They have no way of dealing with that in a clear and cohesive manner. Don't mob people. That's the key to multi-fighting. Just take it in 2s or less. Treat it like a bunch of quick succession 1v1s rather than an actual 2v whatever, 3v whatever.
Yeah, you notice how me and Ari were taking turns engaging, blocking. I went first, then went back in exchange with Ariana. Now I heard Star mention, "Hey, let's get Anubis," and I yelled to Ariana, "Hey, let's fall back." You didn't include that both them and the other party.
Also,
and that keeps everybody moving if you can hear that. That might get lost in the sauce of chaos and stuff, but if you can hear that and you can do things like that, take it, because that is how you give people spacing and you make sure that everyone is on the same page.
As a large unit as well, I don't like the fact that I have multiple people coming at me. One person's binding up my arm so another person can stab me. I might have this shield here, but the fact that somebody's on my flank is going to freak me out. So, as a big unit, what you can do as well is to make it easier for that flow. You saw there was a couple times where I shoulder checked. I'm pushing people away and buying space so that I can take those swings, so I can make those individual attacks that people can react to. Sequence break
using their
is
mass
super
to benefit
important.
them.
Yes, sequence breaking is super important in multi-fights because it gives that time to have that flow and dance. That's not just everybody swinging at once.
Sequence breaks can also help you get a feel for your opponent's pacing. Everybody has different pace. Everybody has different, capabilities when it comes to these fights. So we want to make sure that we respect each other's pace, capabilities. We're not pushing each other too hard or doing anything that would get somebody hurt. So those sequence breaks help you kind of feel out how fast or how slow a fight should go. Something that you can do if you trust a player and you know that you trust them is you can actually speed up just a little bit, because you know that if they go that fast, they're intentionally going to be blocked or missed. So I'm going to do this in the sequence I always do this in. That's left, right, okay?
Yep.
And see, he can react to all of those because me and him have fought each other so many fucking times. We've got a really good example of that from ATK, actually, and is also an example of the best damn multi-fight I've ever had in VRRP, which Zab was also a part of, where those two came at me in a 2v1, and they knew to isolate each other from me and to isolate me from them. If I was pushing too hard on one, the other would come in and save them, and then it was just another 1v1, and that's how they treated it, unless they were grappling. If you go for like a grapple, both of you should be going for a grapple, and you should understand that that's kind of just a fight ender, so try not to do it. In this specific scenario, it was not a fight ender, because my ATK character is fucking cracked. But yeah, that's the key to multi-fights is to take your time, feel out pace, and that's the key to fighting in general. Take your time, feel out the pace of your opponents, your partners, feel out everybody's pace, try to get a handle on that. And the more you know how somebody operates and the more you fought with somebody, the more you can kind of speed it up and actually do some crazier shit, because if you speed it up to that degree, you should not expect a single hit to actually connect. That should be to imply misses and blocks.
So, I know this is something that people have had questions about, especially back in season 3, season 3. With guns in particular, we have the benefit of knowing if someone's taking damage, because you have like a little health marker on there. But for melee, magic, things like that, you don't. What would be a good gauge of knowing how hurt someone is in an engagement without having to necessarily wait for a DM to say, hey, you're bleeding out, go down?
Ideally, a DM should be the one to tell you when it's time to go down, but most of the time, the pace of the fight can kind of be decided at your pace, and actually we have something for that. I don't know if Nick Knack wants to talk on how that sort of thing is going to be handled and how that pacing works. If he can, I will let him take the floor.
Yeah, so a thing we're currently developing, at least in some sense, is a very broad system that is meant to keep the interpretation of the melee combat RP to the player characters involved. But with this system, it is a side for the DMs. It's more of a scale for the DMs to use in that regard, where I can roll things and then just tell you how to convey things. So if I can get 2 volunteers here, anyone will do here on the stage. Sure, Ariana and OSL. Go ahead and be right here in front of me for me, will you? All right. So we call this, it's currently a work in progress name, but for now we're calling it the Clash system. The Clash system is a simple tug of war sort of system, and it starts by immediately evaluating 2 sides of the combat here. So for this case, OSL has probably slightly better equipment, their corp grade stuff on right now. Ariana's probably got like runner grade stuff, or maybe even corporate grade, because I know she's with Masaru. But if I actually looked at their sheets and stuff, I would know this beforehand. But let's say OSL has the advantage. They have corp grade armor, it looks very obvious. So that's the equipment advantage and such like that. That's a quick thing I can interpret right away. It's corp armor, I know what to do with it. But Ariana, on the other hand, has the skill advantage, because Ariana is a former assassin character and has training out the wazoo and is able to far probably outpace OSL's character in a wide amount of berth there. The other thing is the big bonus that is just context sensitive. Let's say OSL is really like in a moment with like really into the spider sense or something like that. So the danger sense is really kicking in. So there's a bit of that. There's a bit of that content. There's also that like multiple limbs are a part of this bonus that you can consider as well. But that's 3 aspects right away that the system can take into consideration and begin rolling off to begin this combat. So the idea is, with those bonuses applied, whatever the DM deems it to be, I now start rolling for d20s. So OSL got a 2. And Ariana got a 12. You're fine. So with this,
I don't want to step on hamburger that's on the floor.
Why do you have a hamburger on the floor?
What? I just finished for Wendy's, okay?
Burger. But so OSL rolled a 2. But Ariana rolled a 12. So with those bonuses in mind, Ariana is very obviously going to have the initial advantage here. So this is where we start our scale in the center of that tug of war. They both have 2 ends of that rope, and now Ariana is going to be the first to tug. Ariana, initial advantage. Convey. From there, while this is happening, there's not going to be anything that's like, oh, OSL's absolutely going to lose and absolutely going to die in this advantage. What this means is that Ariana is going to convey that she has the stronger advantage in the initial function of this melee combat. So now I'm rolling again. OSL got a 17. And Ariana got a 1. Oh no! Ariana,
now see, what I don't want you fuckers to do is while the DM is rolling, stop. No, you just keep that advantage going and you keep your fight moving. Never stop. Never stop.
Until I tell you something, that's the current status quo you're on. But Ariana, you're at great disadvantage. You rolled a 1. Fuck, something major could have happened. You're gonna get knocked over. You could have dropped your weapon. Anything that you want to convey there is up to you. But there you go. Big damage.
That's
right?
perfect. Went down. Big damage. Yep.
Look at that. Boom. Yep, look at that. Ooh, man, so that's a 12 and a 20. Ariana, you're coming back up. You just got that critical. You're fucking resetting this fight. And et cetera from there until someone wins. The scale is relative. The DM determines it based on the scenario that is at large here or currently being engaged with. And until,
Maniacs.
let's say, Ariana, with her skills, bound to overtrot at some point here. So let's say, Ariana, you're at the advantage here.
Yeah, that'll do it.
You're at your last here.
So as we're using this system, I want people to try to not go for like decisive strikes until you know you're winning. Try your best to keep things to like slashes and hits that are like non-lethal or non-fatal at least. That fatal blow or that final blow should only be struck when a DM tells you to make it.
And what I mean by fatal blow, I don't mean go for the kill. What I mean is end the fight or take some major damage. I will let you know what that context means usually at the end of that combat there. So for this is take a fall, right? You've been knocked out. Ariana has outpaced you, OSL. There you go. Bada bing. What that has done from there is up to the RP. It lets DM sort of guide the role players, but still let you have your melee fun and convey your RP properly in what you feel comfortable doing.
We're going to test this out a little bit and have some fun with it. Now, I'm not going to actually use dice to roll because it'll take too long. But for the sake of this, I'm going to call out random numbers and tell people random things as they are occurring. I need 2, 4, 6, 8 people in groups of 2 up on stage. Anybody, volunteers, come on up. Break off into your groups of 2, set up your lines. You're going to be fighting each other.
Fun stuff, right?
Give yourselves plenty of space. This is a big stage.
We'll just watch.
I know deep down you really want to hurt me though.
Now, how we're going to do this is I want Knick-Knack calling out random numbers for people, and I'm going to call out random numbers for people, and we're just going to go around and tell you who's got the advantage as you go.
You don't even gotta call out numbers. Just say a name, give an advantage or disadvantage.
Yep.
That's all you gotta do with the beauty of this system. So here, we'll start. Begin your melee. Let's say everyone starts even. There's no big advantage.
Everybody will start in an even match. Begin your fighting.
Come on, man.
Explorer advantage. Zab disadvantage.
Weathered advantage. Oh god, knick-knack, please.
Okay, alright. Follow timeless, weathered advantage.
Friends, you know, we can
Kill me now.
Demachi, you have a blunt weapon going against armor. Advantage.
Oh boy.
Don't be afraid. Get in there. Take your swings. It doesn't have to look great. It has to be reactable. It has to be functioning. As long as you can react. If you think someone is unable to see what you're doing, make sure that they can hear them. Tell them what you're doing in as short form as possible. 10 words or less.
I have lost my foot. I'm stuck in a position.
Let me just watch my starting here real quick.
Bucky advantage.
Capo, critical advantage.
Honestly,
When you're ready.
You said it as I lost my foot.
Oh god, never fucking mind.
I've lost my foot, sir.
Coyote, star, kick each other's asses. Star, critical advantage starting. Bucky, critical advantage. Now, as you see, people are reacting. They are giving each other space to react, and they are just going. Even when a DM is not telling them what needs to be done, they are just going. If you think a fight is over, right here, a fight just ended, and no DM told them to end it, they came to a natural conclusion on their own. That is fucking perfect. That is excellent.
That is less work for me and more storytelling that you've already agreed upon. Because that's
Coyote, return the advantage. Keep that shit going. There you go. Get your space. Star takes advantage again. Return that advantage to her. Weathered and Scaly, you will finish the fight with both of you perishing. Nico, you will recover from that knee injury and finish the fight with a victory. Exfoller and Capo, you will both finish with a non-lethal tie. Neither of you will die. You will both be incapacitated. Sky, critical advantage, finish the fight.
Go to sleep.
There you go.
Coyote and Star, you will kill each other.
Damn.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. Now, see, I thought I was going to have to tell you fuckers to slow down, and I did not. You all went perfect as far as pacing goes, as far as actually taking your time, making sure everything is reactable. That's what we like to see. That is absolutely excellent.
That's exactly. Good interpretation.
Now, if any of you fine folks would like to run the same thing, get up here and cycle out with a group.
I got a bad headache, so I'm just gonna sit down and watch.
You did great. You did great, Weather.
That is completely understandable. Also, just as we are cycling people out, we're going to run this last cycle and then I'm going to let you all go. Please do not leave until I have done a roll call. I'm going to vocally roll call for the VOD so that I know who all has come and I can check that later. Please do not leave until we've done that. Let's get this last drill going and I'll get you out of here.
I need music for this.
Jesus Christ.
I like a break.
You know what? No. If he wants music, Capo, you're good against him. I want one of you three up against him as well. Give him a 2v1.
Alright, what's that? You wanna fight me?
Don't be shy, people. If you didn't run that drill, come up here and run it. You don't have to, but I'd like you to.
Here, I'll make this better for you. I'll get the
They're
version you
shiny.
want to fight.
They're brand new.
You need a partner, Nico. I need a stick.
Yeah, I'm still ready.
Get your rematch, Java.
Let me get my.
Gotta get my goddamn shield.
Really good effect with the face.
Is there anyone without a partner who would like to run? Please raise your hand for me. Make sure you get a partner.
Let's get this.
Whoa.
I was Zeb and then Bucky kept winning, so I was like, not attacking Zeb.
Okay,
I was like, Bucky, I guess Bucky's got this. Wow, bro.
Luca.
Yes.
How you feeling?
We go back to, I didn't even know you were behind me.
You wanna fight Kurlon?
Yeah, no, I was gonna be vocal, but I was like, wow, Bucky's winning.
Hit it.
Bucky's beating their ass. Wow.
Here, have a sword. Not a big sword. Take small. Come on.
Well, and fight's over because now I'm very dark still.
I saw that.
You think I'll go down that easy?
I did not.
And then got straight behind.
Love to see it.
That's the advantage of size difference.
For sandwiches, it's for them to have a seat.
Glitter, you bitch!
Okay, advantage.
You look like you're struggling. And bring on.
You take that one.
There you go, natural conclusion.
Come on.
I don't know about this goblin combat training too, so I don't know if that gives me any kind of advantage.
Well, here's what you would do with this advantage. Are you a person who works for Masaru and wants to make sure that enforcement happens? Right. So how would you deal with an unruly goblin who's giving you wet and you already got them to the ground? Do you leave them alone and possibly have them come into a scenario where they'll run away or cause chaos or something of the sort? No. As a former trained guard, what you'll probably do, just knock him out, right? And then boom, Scaly's on the ground, you've handled him, and then you maybe cuff him as a guard or something like that, and now, rather than ending that story, you've got capture RP to get engaged with. And there's also the potential for rescue. Scaly, maybe you have people on the radio.
Push me back. You're gonna have me on the back foot. You could probably get a few slices in. Yeah. So you got advantage right now. Take it.
Know that I'm not gonna give you every hit, but I'm gonna at least make it a strong. Even though I'm on
So you're in a position, maybe you're faking it, right? Maybe you're faking the hit. You're trying to get into a lower position. A hero would never fake it, right? But it's the context of the scenario.
You'll hold the advantage?
So maybe instead of Troy actually saying, okay, this is your moment, because you know Detroit's character, to take the pain moment, to do the thing that, you want him to actually stop it. And he steps over in a way you didn't expect.
Let's talk more stabbing!
That's a bubble blade, right? So...
Oh, fuck, my allies dead.
I put so much double A you're right.
Yeah, that's not gonna do well against us.
Okay, well, you know what? I know when to surrender. Truly, I do.
No shield.
Man, you got a thick skull for a little one.
Side ahead.
Well, I say my mama raised me very well. And I say that my mama always
Take a nap now. All right.
That was a table.
Detroit and RK, you will finish in a non-lethal tie. Nico, you will kill Scaly.
Out of nowhere.
Java, you will kill OSL. Colon, you and Luca will tie lethally. You will both die.
Opponent already, so.
Understandable. I was supposed to be on medic. You're not supposed to need medical.
Easy come, easy go. At least I can sort of treat myself.
Damn. Oh look, now you see the real monster come out. I knew it.
It's all other player action that turned Angela into a pharmacist. She was going to be a pacifist to begin with.
See,
but other players' action turned her into what she is.
The real beauty of melee RP.
If I'm gonna protect people, I'm gonna keep people alive, even as a medic. I'm going to 100% need to fire back.
Once you guys are finished up, we are just now approaching the 2.5 hour mark. Actually, I think we're 10 minutes behind that mark because we started about 10:15 late. So we are on time, pretty much. We're like exactly where I thought we were going to be. So here is what I will do now. I know we have somebody recording a stream. Please make sure that you are somewhere clear where you only hear my voice if possible. I am going to read off the people that are in the room still, and those people are cleared for the basics workshop. Okay, those people are going to be Apex, Ariana, RK, Bucky, Capo, Catbug, Crystal, Damachi, Detroit, Dogs, Exfoler, Coyote, HB, Java, Kid Canuck, Kurlon, Luca, Luna, Major Blue, Manmanera, Mezzode, Mug, Nico, OSL, Renegade, Scaly, Sky, Star, Ty Drago, myself, Weathered, Knickknack, and Zab. All of you, thank you for coming. You are free to go, and you do not need to go to another basics workshop. You are all vetted for the basics. If any of you are combat characters, I expect to see you at the advanced workshop. That is not optional. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thomas, want to see stupid shit?
Man and fun.
Sure.
Okay, around there.